Welcome to Deep Dive. I want to thank all of you for joining us, and hopefully you're going to learn a lot today. We have a fascinating guest. Our guest is Connie Alex. Connie, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Glad to be here.
You have a great title here for work. She leads the B2B influencer marketing and content creation at Dell. So again, thanks for giving us some of your time on a busy schedule.
Thank you.
So let me introduce you to the world here, at least to our 10 followers. And let me just introduce you. So give us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, so I've been at Dell Technologies for over 12 years now. I came out of academia and later on went into educational publishing, and then 12 years ago decided to go into the high-tech industry because it's fast-paced, it's fun, and it never lets you rest on any laurels you might acquire anywhere. So what I've been doing specifically over the last few years is, as mentioned, influencer marketing, specifically B2B and enterprise influencer marketing. Still not just 100% comfortable with the term influencer marketing. I much rather call it industry expert engagement, really on a B2B basis, because it describes much better what we're doing, because we've come such a long, long way from social influencers being people on social networks like Twitter with a bunch of followers. That's not it anymore. But I'm getting ahead of myself, so back to you for a second.
Oh, yeah, no problem at all. So in what areas of the business do you try to have industry experts kind of aligned with different areas of the business? Do you just do it in a generic way or a general way, or do you have different categories of industry experts for different product lines?
Oh, very, very differentiated. Again, as I mentioned earlier, we are getting away from, really working with generalists who have a large following, but we're looking for industry experts. And right now I have a program that has 3 main pillars, meaning also 3 different groups of influencers who are very, very different from each other. We do a lot in thought leadership research, meaning we, Dell Technologies, working with a academic institution, for example, to launch and create research reports about, create research reports about emerging technologies and how they're affecting society and economy and the workplace in the future. That's one aspect. And another one, very, very different, is enterprise technology. And we go from topics, from storage to servers. And the audience for those conversations are IT managers, CIOs, IT decision makers, and of course the influencers we are engaging with around these topics talk to this audience. So a very different group with different industry expertise in these technologies, not a foot deep, but 500 foot deep into the technology. So these conversations are very rich and informative for our audiences. And then I'm also working with a group of influencers who are independent voices, with whom I produce podcasts, for example, around the purpose and point of view of Dell Technologies. And what I mean by that is we have a purpose, and the purpose of Dell is to enable technologies for human progress. That's a narrative we want out there in the marketplace. And with this third group of influencers, I work on shaping and getting out this narrative about our company, because it's at the core of everything we do.
That is fascinating. When I look at the description of your role, it says you design sustainable long-term relationships and programs with industry experts and academics. How do you work with academics?
So it's one of my favorite parts of my job, because I firmly believe in the necessity to collaborate between industry and academia. We need to have a vivid, ongoing, always-on knowledge exchange between practitioners who once were in academia now are in industry and are dealing with the business, how it goes every single day, and with the rigor of research that's happening in the academic institution. So we bring in academics to do workshops for us, for example, to our leadership teams. That can be anything from measuring social to research on the future economy. We bring them also in as sources for research. For example, when we worked on a research with the Institute for the Future about what will emerging technologies have to do and how will they impact life, society, the economy, how we work in the year 2030. We bring in these academics to speak with the Institute for the Future, to provide input based on their knowledge, on their research. What's going to happen to us, with AI in the future, with the IoT in the future, and so forth. Yes. So.
Oh, I can see that. I mean, Dell is all about different ways of interacting with technology, and if it moves from keyboards to voice to some other kind of environment, that's really important for you guys to have a heads up and be thinking about it and preparing for it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Absolutely. So what does a good influencer strategy look like? What's best practices?
Yeah, so let me start at the very top. Any influencer relations in B2B, and I want to make clear that I'm speaking for B2B, not B2C. For B2B, what's important for us is a long-term trust-based relationship that is based on mutual value creation. So the brand gets value, the influencer, what I like to call the industry expert that is very, very connected, gets value. The values are different, but they need to be the same in the amount. They need to be long-term, and it's not something, a relationship that I can build overnight, not even in a week, not even in a month. My regular model looks at 7 to 9 months of engagement before we work with them as strategic partners for the long term. And that goes really from day one, from this first date where you know a little bit about each other, but then the knowledge exchange begins between us briefing the expert and the expert bringing their expertise to what we are doing. So it's mutual input, mutual value, long term, really important.
So what would be some examples of co-creation of content with academics and with industry experts?
Yeah, many examples. For example, when we go to an event, we have Dell Technologies World, our biggest customer event in the year, always happening at the beginning of May. We invite influencers, both industry experts and academic experts, and we have planned topics that we want to talk about. That could be right now. Currently, it's 5G, it's edge computing. It is artificial intelligence, machine learning, but it's also social impact. So what do we do around social impact? To be corporate, good corporate citizens. So this could be a variety of topics. We plan out the topics. We bring our own experts from the CTO office of the Chief Technology Officer, and we pair them with influencers for a video interview, for example. We record podcasts similar to what we're doing right now, and we do those remotely. We do those in person at the event. We capture impressions. However, I have to say, it's not so much about hey, how do you like this event? That's not it. It's really about, okay, what do you think of the developments that we announced today, the products, the solutions, the technology updates we announced in cloud, in edge, and 5G. With your expertise, what are you thinking about those, and how is it going to impact life in the future? And in the near term, what's the benefit to our customers from what you heard? So that's the typical way of co-creating content, where I rely very heavily on their expertise to obtain this third-party opinion, uninfluenced by me, but influenced only by the briefings we gave them about the actual technology.
Oh, that's very interesting. So have you had to change the kinds of content that you're planning on generating because of changing consumption patterns? Are people wanting video? Yeah, they want reports? Are they wanting podcasts now more than something else? How are you seeing that evolve?
Yeah. So if I just say what everybody says right now, is like, who reads a white paper? But, people have shorter attention spans. Now, I don't 100% agree on that, because We didn't get any dumber over time, but we are able to consume in different ways. We are used to consuming by reading. We are used to consuming with video or by listening now when we drive in the car. We have different ways of consuming content depending on where in our day and where physically we are and where mentally we are. So what we are trying to do is cover this end to end. I'm not all of a sudden jumping only onto quick video because that's what everybody says, people can pay attention. No, I cover the full spectrum. We are also all different learners. Some are auditory, some are visual, and some learn best when they're completely distracted by something else and pay attention. So you distract yourself to pay attention. I'm not sure if the listeners have heard about that. It's a very interesting concept. So we fold laundry to listen to a podcast, for example, as one example. And people do that. We do that as business decision makers. We do that as consumers. We do that as people. And we try to cover all of these different ways so that there is something for everybody, wherever and whenever you choose to pay attention to us. And we take nobody's attention for granted. We are very appreciative of anybody's attention. And for that moment, we create the right content.
One of the phrases when I was researching your background, and one of the phrases I saw under your profile, it says the world thrives on knowledge exchange. What do you mean? What does that mean to you?
Yeah. Well, you hear this phrase right now, data is everything, deluge of data analytics. But then there's a whole different level. I mean, we have information, we have data, but knowledge. When we have knowledge, that includes data that we can analyze, but it also includes the tacit knowledge that all of us as experienced professionals have developed. Now let's bring this together and not focus on just one thing. And we tend to over-focus, just like with my previous, with your question, my answer, we tend to over-focus always on the latest, the newest, the shiniest. Let's think about knowledge in terms of coming together from all these different sources. There's raw data that we can consume, maybe not so useful if it's too big. Then there's information, meaning the data has been cut into different slices. However, the slices were determined by people also. How we cut, slice and dice the data, we can change them however we like to, but we cannot change something that exists more really in our tacit experience and deep knowledge that we have acquired over the years, what works, what are best practices. Now, when we can bring all of this together, and we have managed that, and then collaborate and exchange this knowledge, then we have a meaningful outcome. Not guaranteed, never guaranteed, but most likely. That's what I mean.
That's so interesting to me. So you've reflected on the fact that you guys have so many different initiatives and programs and content that is co-created and reports and think tanks and all these kinds of things.
Right.
Every year when it comes to budget time, what's the ROI that your Dell leadership is wanting from your organization?
Yeah, so for influencer relations, traditionally it has been very difficult. On the consumer side, if you can tie it, for example, to specific online or socially communicated offers that then you can track via link tracking, great. That would be one way to measure, but there's so many more. On the B2B side, we are much more at the top of the funnel for the purchase process. We are there to raise awareness, to educate, and to help people understand how we can help them, customers specifically, obviously, with our solutions. And that's not it. So the ROI for me is achieved with an influencer in the B2B context when this industry expert that is very connected can connect with my customers and speak to them about the advantages that, in their opinion, exists of our end-to-end solutions over maybe a different competitors or to something else. When that happens, then I feel I have achieved a huge goal. Does it happen all the time? No, it doesn't. Of course, we have other ways of measuring. And one of them is engagement is one of the metrics that is somewhat useful as well for us to understand when our influencers talk on social, how many people are actually engaging. And of those people, this audience that engage in, how many are real interested folks, right, who are also subject matter experts who really want to engage into a deeper conversation. Vanity metrics will always appear, and I think as long as we exist in social, vanity metrics will always be there as an easy one to check off if you just want to get something fast. It's not very useful, as we all know. And because one of the things that I find most useful is the offline metrics. So that means, and this is a real example, one of our influencers was briefed on a research report called Realizing 2030. And she then later on that year went to a conference in Portugal, to a digital marketing conference, and spoke on stage about the research that Dell is doing. And that in turn was picked up by media. And we found this article that she actually made us aware of. So that to me is the ultimate proof to what we're doing is working. So, and that's offline, right? This was not done by us. This was our influencers sharing what they were briefed on and believe is right, is good, is valuable with their audiences.
Oh, thank you for sharing that example.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were giving advice to a company that's just preparing to initiate an influencer program, what advice would you give them?
Really approach it from a relationship basis. So it is never about calling an agency and saying, give me some influencers, or responding to an email that I get daily multiple times is, I have access, we as a company have a database of X number of 500,000 influencers. Do you want some? No, I don't want those. And that's not the way to start a program. You have to do your research. You have to be on top of what are your business goals? And if you know what your business goals are, you look into the people who have authority in that topical community that's already talking online. For that, today, you can do this many ways. One way is, of course, employing algorithms that companies provide. And when you work with them and create meaningful profiles and with the right search terminology, that can be a starting point. It is not the end point. It's a starting point. Then you look these over. You talk to your own subject matter experts. If I want to talk about 5G, I talk to my subject matter experts and say, hey, look at these people. Let's look at their content. Do they talk the language that our audiences will understand? Is this the right level they're talking? When all this happens, then you can start connecting with these influencers. So my best practice and advice is don't rush into it. Be very deliberate about this. Do your research, do your homework at first. And no, once you get into it, it is a relationship business. You cannot turn it on and off. You get to know them, you get to value them, and you work with them. And then they become strategic partners. Not always, but in the best of cases.
Connie, thank you so much for sharing your brilliance, your insight, your research, your experience with all of us. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you. It was great fun. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
And I want to thank everyone out there who tuned in today.